Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another movie review. I have a very special guest with me today, and I'm so excited about it. I'm so excited to be looking at Alicia Grasso right now. Hi.
Hi. I know, I'm excited too. I know, since we can't hang out in person now,
I'm glad
we
we
can
can do
do this
this. And especially,
social distancing.
I feel like you were one of the perfect people to reach out to talk about this movie. Am I right that you have a lot to say about Vivarium?
Uh, I do.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if it's what you think I'll say, but I definitely have
Ooh,
a lot to say.
that makes me even more curious. So, this movie does seem like it warrants a spoiler section, but have no fear, guys. We are going to save it to the end of this video. Right now, it's just the basics. And I'm going to kick it off with the IMDb synopsis of the movie, so I don't dare spoil a single thing for you because that terrifies me. A young couple looking for the perfect home finds themselves trapped in a mysterious labyrinth-like neighborhood of identical houses. Wow, that was a very, very safe sentence there. I am glad I read it. This one was very, very freaky. I'm a big fan of Jesse Eisenberg and Imogen Poots, so the second I saw their names attached to anything, I was signed up immediately, but I think maybe within a matter of minutes, this concept got me hooked, and then what amplified it even more is the fact that it's got some of the best production design I have seen in a very, very long time.
I will agree with you on the production design. I think we're on opposite sides of this, which
Oh no.
actually could be very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
How
You're like,
how
no, no,
so?
no.
How so? I'm curious.
So I think the production design is stunning. Like it's some of the shots, like just the uniformity of the first shot where they pull into the. I know I'm like I don't want to. I'm like, is this a spoiler? No, it's not a spoiler. It's in the trailer where they pull into the complex
Yes.
or the
The
development, and you
suburban
see the
neighborhood,
first
yeah.
row. Yeah, you see the first row of the houses and just that uniformity of it, and then in that like hospital green,
Mm-hmm.
and then a couple of the shots from overhead, just the kind of it looked almost like model town-esque, and I just loved the look of it. I thought the design
Mm-hmm.
was incredible, but I think the production the production value of it is the narrative doesn't hold up to it,
Mm-hmm.
because the visuals are so elevated, but the story itself I found to be really kind of heavy-handed. A lot of the symbolism he was talking about, a lot of the themes, there was no subtlety to it, and there wasn't a whole lot of um, nuance. Like it was kind of just like his own fears and insecurities coming out,
Mm-hmm.
which normally I really like. I kind of feel like he did a better job exploring themes of kind of settling down before you're ready, and the fear and kind of ball and chain aspect of being a parent and being beholden to a child that you're maybe not ready for,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of getting boring and getting stale. I think he explored a lot of those themes and that fear a lot better in his short Foxes. So I feel like he did a better job of exploring things with a little bit more depth um, in Foxes. So I think I was left a little disappointed by this because there are some really interesting concepts that I wish he had gone a little deeper into.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. I think I just happen to have taken to that aspect of it a little more, where I think it kind of amplified the whole scenario, where like everything felt so heavy-handed that it almost felt like a cartoonish commentary on how
Yeah,
blunt all of those things are truly in
yeah,
our lives, and those expectations and those fears that we
yeah.
all have. They are all right in our face all the time, but we just have a habit of ignoring them. And then all of a sudden he paints this picture of something that seems super heightened but is still so close to our reality.
That's a really good way of putting it. I didn't actually think of it that way, and I do agree that there is kind of at times there's a very darkly comedic aspect to this. Like every scene Jonathan Aris is in,
Oh
and
my.
he always plays he always plays like slightly off-putting and creepy, but in a funny way. Like he does it so well in so many things he's in.
Yeah.
Um, I think what is the last thing? Oh, the last thing I saw him in was Dracula, where he actually didn't play a creepy guy in Dracula, but even that was like genre, and he played a slightly odd character. So he definitely added to that kind of darkly, black comedy,
Yeah.
tongue in cheek, weird humor.
I guess I just did almost like a triple feature-ish with him because I went from Dracula to finally watching all of the End of the Fucking World and now to this.
Oh,
So
nice.
I've had a
Yeah.
lot of him in my life right now, but
A lot of Jonathan
he's
Harris. Yeah.
excellent as always, and I hope I pronounce his first name right, but the one who plays the young boy in the movie, Senan
All-time
Jennings.
creepy kid.
Oh
All-time creepy
no!
kid. I
Oh
was like,
no!
I don't want kids. I love kids, but I don't want kids. And I honest to God think it's just like at some point in my formative years, I think it was Pet Terry, maybe Gage Creed. I was like, no, I don't want to mess with kids. I don't want, because they'll be in my house, then they might turn evil,
Of course
and
they're
I
gonna
don't
be in your
know. But I
house.
think it's just gotten in my subconscious.
I think
But
the one that really unsettled me the most recently was probably the young boy in the Babadook.
Yeah,
I
but
found
yeah,
I found him hard to watch at the beginning, but then it's interesting
yeah,
how that story progresses.
yeah. But yeah, I will say that this has like, and it's such a subtle thing they do with his voice. Um, but it's, or I guess not subtle.
No,
It's
yeah,
a
I
kind
was
of
gonna
actually
say it's not
like the
subtle.
rest of the movie, not subtle, blatant like the rest of the movie. I
Yeah,
think I meant to say simple, but it works. It's really effective. And the first time that you heard like their voices coming out of his mouth, but
yeah.
in a slightly modified way, I was like, ooh,
It
oh,
is
I don't like that. That's creepy.
so unsettling. I think every single thing that young actor does in this movie is unsettling because I did
Mhm.
not see this movie on the festival circuit. I watched it on my laptop last night in the middle of the night in a dark room by myself,
Mhm.
and I kept having to lower the volume at points.
Mhm.
And it's not because there was some sort of poor audio work. It was because it was
Yeah,
too effective and it was freaking me out.
yeah. I will say one interesting thing I did find about the movie, and I guess the more I talk to you, the more I think about it, like maybe the better, more it works for me, is that I thought it was a really interesting because something that you'll never hear a parent say, or rarely, especially women, is that they regret being a parent, or that being a parent is sometimes they just wish their kid would just disappear for a while or go away, or that they're just exhausted being a mother or a parent to a child who's constantly needy and demanding. And so I thought that it was really interesting that he just kind of went there and really kind of went heavy on the symbolism of being a parent and just not wanting to be sometimes, and just looking at your child and being like, I don't, I wish you would go away. Like, I'm exhausted.
In this particular
So,
case, I totally understand that response.
yes.
But it's just,
Yeah.
I think that this movie ticked a whole lot of boxes thematically for me, whether it was being a parent, whether it was seeing Jesse Eisenberg and Imogen Poots' relationship evolve, just getting used to life at home. And the cool thing I think about this movie is also how it plays with time as well. And that's another thing that I think just amplified the whole scenario. Because, when something takes place over a really, really long period of time, you could start looking back on things that happened in the past, and they might not seem as bad anymore. But when you condense everything, it's like, holy shit. Like, everything is like, holy shit. And it
Yeah.
hits you like a ton of bricks. And that's what this entire movie felt like to me. It felt like it was an 11 from almost start to finish.
Yeah. It's also, I think it was also the right choice for them to, because some people that might watch this movie might think, well, they seem really resigned to this, and they don't really seem that, like, they fight it for a short while and then they just kind of are resigned. And I'm like, well, yeah, but think about it. That's how so many of us go through life, where we had ideas, we had goals, we had aspirations, and then we grow up, and then one day we look back and we realize, oh, I've been really complacent for the last 10 years. I have let my dreams die. I've just kind of let life happen to me and been really passive instead of active. And so I think that was the right call, and having them kind of um, be resigned to their fate a lot faster than you would normally see in a horror or thriller.
Yeah, but I think they sell the setup so well that I totally bought into what choice do they have. And
Mhm.
I don't know. I think the one that I understood most at the beginning was probably Tom, because the way he busies
Mhm.
himself is probably something I would do in that situation, which is so
What
scary
we're
to
all
think
doing
of.
right now.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the other thing too. And You know, what you were saying before, it's also that idea, and it could be taken a positive or a negative way. Just make the most of what you have. You know,
Yeah.
it could be a very easy thing to say and a very easy way to dish out a little bit of hope, but depending on your circumstances, you might not be able to do all that much with that. So I feel like having that thrown in my face in that kind of situation, I don't know, made my heart ache for them a lot.
It was I was surprised at how bleak it
Oh
was.
my God, yeah.
Where at the very end, and we won't spoil that, but the end, I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. It's
So
very,
that's,
very hard to watch. We have
hmm
to get into spoilers on this, but do you
yeah.
know the rating system on this channel? Do you know how we
I
rate
don't
movies? Okay,
actually. No, I don't
it's a
think I actually
very,
do.
very special thing, and I am glad to introduce you to it. So we rate movies on
Right.
a scale of Deweys, the Dewey Decimovie
Yeah.
scale.
Oh, goodness. Okay,
There are
yes.
you can go up to 5 Deweys. You are allowed to use half Deweys. So if you had to give Vivarium a rating on the Dewey Decimovie scale, what would it be and why?
Before we started talking, I would have said 2. Now I'm going to go up to, I think I'll give it a 3.5.
Okay, okay.
So, because I still think I appreciate things about it more, but there were still some things that I wish had been done a little, that he had dived into a little bit more deeply, or maybe with a little bit more nuance.
Hmm.
So, but it brought it up a whole Dewey and a half.
I am going to go with 4 Deweys out of 5 on the Dewey Decimovie scale. I thought this worked really, really well. And again, I think it worked well in the way that I described to you earlier in the video. My mind always tends to go towards wanting to see more of what happens behind the scenes, behind the curtain.
Hmm.
So I felt myself kind of itching for that a little more. And
Yeah.
I thought Imogen Poots was just absolutely phenomenal in this movie, and I think Jesse Eisenberg is very good too, and I think that the narrative is weighing more heavily on her shoulders, and purposely. I think it was
Yeah.
designed to
Because
be
he
that
checks
way.
out.
He
Yeah,
does
he checks out.
checks out, but I did want a little more access to him
Yeah.
at certain points, but especially because we do still spend a lot of screen time with him. So I would think those are really the only two things that bring it down a notch for me, but 4 out of 5 Deweys. So let's talk about that ending now. Spoiler warning, we've got a couple minutes of spoiler talk here. Go check out Vivarium and then come back and watch the rest of this conversation. Oh my, that ending. Holy shit, the production design, that part where
Yeah.
the older version of the boy lifts the street curb
Yeah.
like it's a freaking
Yeah.
rug and crawls under it. I
I just waited
audibly
for
yelped.
Pennywise to be like, I just waited to see like a clown's face popping up, and I was like, the visuals in this movie again were so good because even that, because the entire neighborhood was so uniform and so perfect and so like Stepford Wives
Hmm.
50s, like pristine, that weird warp in the fabric of reality, it was just a really unsettling visual to me. And I was just like, when she crawled after, I was like, no, 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 no,
And it wasn't even just
don't
that
get
shot,
her.
it kept going. That whole sequence I thought was just brilliantly executed because every
Mm,
single level she went to, and I'm not saying that it's vertically structured or anything, but
yeah.
every single section she went into,
Mhm.
it hurt. Everything they had experienced was just thrown in your face again and again and again. And then when they get to that ending, and even before you get to the ending, when they bring out the body bag for him, that is an extremely difficult visual to look at. And
Yeah.
that whole thing made me appropriately sick to my stomach. And then they hit you with it again, and then even again at the very end.
I also found myself wondering, and I'm like, it made sense, but I couldn't help but think of, never mind, it's going to get dark. I'm not
Oh,
going to say it.
oh no, I'm so curious now.
I was like, did Tom die from the coronavirus? Because
He
I was like, what was wrong? Because it was like he had a cold and then
that was one of the things that
just,
I wanted more access to Tom for.
yeah,
I wanted a more concrete answer as to why he fell
yeah.
ill. I imagine it was because there was something in the soil that he was surrounded by pretty much
He kept
24/7.
breathing it in.
Yeah, he kept breathing
Yeah,
it
he kept
in,
breathing it in
and
his
I thought
coughing.
that's what made
But
him
then,
sick.
but I also, and there was something I wish I had gone back to as well. I also wonder because she then did too, and she wasn't breathing it in. But
It
there's
wasn't quite the same as his though.
It wasn't, but they made the mention of that the food had no taste. So I wondered if the food had no sustenance as well, and they were slowly starving to death, which is also very metaphorical and would be fitting for
I didn't think about
the
that.
movie. If they didn't have actual nutrients, if it doesn't have flavor, if the food also doesn't have nutrients, so even what they're consuming,
and it's more
it's
of
metaphorically not filling them.
but it's even more of a mental thing too, and it kind of lines up to a lot of our own routines. It's like, let's say you're in the routine of having like a super shitty breakfast every day just because you like it, and it doesn't actually have any nutritional value, but it's just your thing, so you just keep doing it. So it's almost like the folks in charge just had to make sure they felt like real humans eating food, and it was actually nothing. That's possible, but they also made such a big point out of his smoking habits too. So I was wondering if that had a bigger connection.
That's true.
So
see, don't smoke. Coronavirus. I'm telling you.
I wish everyone. I know it's more it's difficult and it's easier said than done. But I wish many people out there would stop doing anything to put themselves, at risk even more so.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that last shot where she crawls underneath the world, crawls underneath the ground, and then she's falling through the levels. I thought those were so visually interesting, and I'm so glad that he didn't just use red.
Yes.
Because I do, and who's going to yell at me for saying
this. Yes, I
do. Matt's going to yell at me for saying this, but I'm just putting it out there. I think reds are overused. There, Donato. I think reds are overused. What my color is, I love purples and indigos, and so I was so excited to see the one level she fell into that was all indigo.
Yeah. Sorry, I got distracted by a cat on my lap. He's back. He demands the spotlight. You already know this all too well.
He already got mad at us yesterday.
Yeah, really. I'm with you on the color scheme there. I thought that played extremely well, and really the colors overall. It's just it was so vibrant, but at the same time, it sucks the life out of the world. And having it work hand in hand like that.
It was that mid-century, like mint green, like just very bland. And so that's why I think that very end where she's falling through levels and it's so visually just bright and jarring. I think it was a really interesting choice to use that because everything to that point had been so like antiseptic and anesthetized, and just that kind of gross mint hospital green. And like the weirdly uniform, like cotton ball clouds, which I thought looked incredible. It was such a cool visual. But that was the only time that it felt real and raw and gritty. And so I thought that those scenes were really effective with those visuals.
Yeah, makes you think about the little things too, just the verbal mentions of the clouds, the passionate speech about wind in the end. And that was another thing that, given the current situation, kind of stung a little more than it might have before. It's like I miss the days of going out in the sun and seeing other people and all of that. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was what you made specifically of what the boy was watching on the TV. Like, what do you think that was doing for him, if anything?
I don't know. I was thinking about that because I was like, what is this language? That book that she found?
Yeah. I was surprised we never came back to the book.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm still having issues with this. And why I only give it a 3.5 is because I don't need... I'm not the type of person who needs like everything explained to me or had to have my hand held, but I do think there were moments or like plot, threads that were just dropped, or that I would have liked to have seen explored a little more deeply. And so that book, and also because I'm a giant book and literature nerd, I was like, ooh, what's that? Language, like
not for the book, but I have an idea for the TV, and I just came up with this as we were talking about it. So you know how the boy's voice is a mixture of their voices, so it's all about what he's learning from his parents. But then, as is in reality, like a child growing up now is a combination of what he or she learns from his parents, but also what they get from the television. So what if the television is just some sort of alien language that is instructions as to what he is supposed to do in this life, and when he gets out of this community, and he's just one big combination of the three things?
That, and also symbolically too, I think that it really just kind of shows how we do become hypnotized by media, and as we sit here doing a film review. But it does, how we just kind of have become consumers of everything and just kind of mindlessly taking things in and not really sitting down to think about what we're watching. We're just kind of consuming. And so I thought that aspect and how we get maybe a little brainwashed without realizing it, just being bombarded with certain messages. We see media over and over and over and over again. So I think on a symbolic level, that's kind of what I took from it as well. But it was I also thought it was interesting that the moment where he said, oh, I met somebody when I was walking around, and she said, oh, who did you meet? And then he made that horrific, weird, like aliens. So now I'm like, was it aliens? Like,
I mean, it
was
it
an
was
alternate universe?
it was definitely it was definitely a non-human creature.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. So it was interesting. Like, I have to say, like, the one time where Tom was like, no, don't call to him, call it. I'm like, listen to Tom.
Well, it's like,
lady, that thing's not human.
That adds another, like a big picture question to the whole thing. And it's, what is the purpose of this whole operation? And I'm not just talking thematically from movie to movie goer. In this specific world, why are they doing this? I don't know. If it is an alien-like creature, maybe they're studying humans and manipulating humans to have an invasion. Now my mind's just spinning out of control. I'm just making shit up now.
I also wonder why, if there was any significance to the fact that when she was falling through the levels, the only other human being she saw, other than the creepy alien, you know who he reminded me of?
Who?
The sound that he made. I don't know if you ever remember this, but the cover of National Enquirer, when they ran the whole Bat Boy and like Weekly World News, I remember being a kid and being horrified by this. It was like, and I would see it on newsstands all the time, and there was this phenomenon supposedly called Bat Boy, and it was a boy that had like giant eyes, who's bald and he had like giant eyes and pointed ears. And I remember this cover vividly where his like mouth was open. It looked like he was screaming or screeching, and just the sounds that the kid in this movie made, I just kept thinking, like, it sounds like that picture looked, and it horrified me as a kid. But sorry, segue, going back to what I was actually going to say, is that I wonder if there's any significance to the fact that as she was falling through the levels, the only other person she saw was another woman who was sitting at the table crying, and there was no, and so I remember that moment thinking, oh, did she also lose her husband or her partner? Because she was sitting at the table alone crying. And so I was like, oh, interesting, because it was just, for some reason, the way I read that scene was that she had also just lost her partner. And so for a moment I was like, oh, I wonder if there's this against the fact that it's that are.
I read it the same way, but it doesn't even have to be having lost your partner to death necessarily. Like, she could have lost her partner to digging, or just emotionally disconnected. But I think she does make eye-to-eye contact with a man when those two people are having sex.
Oh, that's
true.
He
looks directly at her. I think it was him that did,
that.
But I don't know, it's an interesting thing. This is one of those reasons why, and I think because I've been home and reading articles nonstop, I've grown even more obsessed with ending explain piece. And while I do greatly value a movie that leaves interpretation in my hands to a degree, like, I like answers, and I would really like a whole Vivarium movie about all of this from the behind the scenes perspective. It's like when he took that last body bag and put it in the drawer, and it clearly went down a chute, or sounded like it went down a chute. I want to know where it went and what's going on down there.
It's really bleak too, just the whole idea that ultimately children grow up to replace us. And like the cycle begins anew, the vicious cycle of just growing up and consuming. And I found it really fascinating because I've never interviewed Lorcan Finnegan, but I would love to sit down with Lorcan Finnegan, the director, for those of you out there that didn't.
Oh, I feel bad. I should have said that earlier. I never name dropped them.
But I can't remember if I did it or not either. But I would love to sit him down and just kind of pick his brain about life, because this was so bleak, and it was such a bleak reading of how we live our lives and how we move through the world and how we exist in the world. And I cannot help but want to be like, are you okay? Like, let's talk. Like, how do you like, and just talk to him about his kind of philosophy of everything, because it was a surprisingly bleak take on
Yes.
existence. And I was just like, oh, I don't feel like we're like that. Like, there is elements of that, but I was like, this is definitely an exaggerated version.
Hmm.
Um, it'd be really interesting to kind of pick his brain about his thought process in making this movie, because I do see some of the same themes in this that he started to develop in Foxes, his short.
Yeah. I mean, when you see something as bleak as this, it's
Mhm.
unpleasant, but the thought that I keep trying to hold on to in my mind is seeing something like that makes you rethink your own reality and make the most of your own reality instead of falling into this
Yeah,
trap time and time again.
yeah.
Before we close this out, because now I feel bad about it, I want to shout out a couple of other people, because the cinematographer on this one is McGregor.
Yeah,
Phenomenal work, and production
yeah.
designer is Philip Murphy, art direction by Robert Barrett, and I also really dug the score as well by
Yeah,
Christian Aidnes Anderson. I hope I pronounced that
it's a
second name right.
really well-made
Yeah,
movie.
it's one of those movies where it would not have worked unless every single department was operating at peak level and came
Mm.
together perfectly, and that's pretty much what happened.
Hmm.
As
Yeah.
a leader, uh, Lorcan Finnegan uh, just brought everything together as well as it possibly could have been. Minus those little story question marks we have, I really think that they knocked this out of the park as well as they could. And I was very impressed and glad I watched it. And I'm very glad I got to talk about it with you today.
Yeah, no, I'm excited.
Before we say
I'm
goodbye
like,
to everyone, you
hey,
have to tell everyone where they can find like your work and your freaking wonderful personality on all the socials.
thanks. I'm the editorial lead for Atom Tickets, ATOM Tickets. People are like, who's Adam? I'm like, no, Atom. Uh, so you can find my work on Atom Tickets. You can also find me on Twitter. I am very active on Twitter at aliciabrauso.com. Same for Instagram. And I am not nearly as good as Perri, but I'm trying to get my YouTube channel started. So you can find me by doing a search for my name there, because I have a weird name with a weird spelling. So I'm pretty much easy to find. But yeah, so you can find me pretty much everywhere.
I had a head start on this YouTube stuff. You're going to jump in feet first, and I'm here to help with any tech needs you have to get everything off the ground, and viewers are going to love it. Before we say goodbye, I feel like I have to at least show you guys what's been going
Hi,
on
Dewey.
down here the entire. Yeah, he's comfortable.
When you're back
He's
in
in the
Los
zone.
Angeles, we're allowed to see people again. I want to come cuddle Dewey.
Please do. He's always accepting visitors. Good luck to you competing with Haley, though. I think Haley is the favorite at the moment, but he's open to competition, so you can come and
I
compete
don't
for that
know.
title.
I'm pretty good with animals.
I believe it. All right, guys, thank you so much
I will
for
share it with
watching
Haley.
this review. I will see you soon. Go
Bye.
follow Alicia. Have a good one and stay safe, everyone.